And sound is on.
Okay, great. So, you guys are just don't rush me at once now. All right.
Pretty much.
Yeah, right here. Get her. This right here. John, you sit here.
Turn my phone on.
Let me just.
I don't need this. You want me to?
Okay. Okay, hi, I'm Ralph Baker. I'm host of Trump and the Global Economy. It's a quarterly speaker series which helps parse through Trump's policies and how they affect the global economy. Today's event, we will cover not only the global economy, but also aspects of Project Varsity Blues, otherwise known as the college admission scam. So I'll just start with each one of the panelists and let them introduce themselves. So with Akil Bello.
I'm Akil Bello. I've run a test prep company for about 11 years. I guess one might say I'm a test prep expert. So I know a little bit about admissions testing and the world of college admissions. That's the short story.
I'm John McLaughlin. I run a McLaughlin Associates. It's a polling and market research company, and we do polling for a lot of members of Congress, U.S. senators, governors, and President Trump.
My name is Christopher Townley. I have a nickname, the Land Baron. I have been in the real estate business for 35 years and many aspects of it, and link the real estate and land use to many of our economic problems, and I've been writing about that for the past few years.
And I'm Ralph Baker. I'm obviously founder of Trump and the Global Economy. I'm also author of the book Shock Exchange, How Inner City Kids from Brooklyn Predicted the Great Recession and the Pain Ahead. I've spent years doing corporate finance and mergers and acquisitions, but I'm probably most known in Brooklyn for this financial literacy program I started for my 11-year-old son, other boys his age, called the New York Shock Exchange. And so I tried to leverage all of our contacts throughout Brooklyn, throughout New York, to come together to help parse through Trump's policy and hopefully give people real information that they just won't find on television. So we'll start with John McLaughlin, who will give us some updates on the polling. He was hit here a couple years ago when he went through. He gave us the blow by blow as far as how President Trump got elected. So we'll start with him first.
Now, being a New Yorker and having known, I called you Coach Baker for a long time ago when you were in the Harlem Shock Exchange, because you were kind enough to let my son's teams play against your son's teams and the other teams, and being a New Yorker, that was a good thing. But who would know back then that Donald Trump was going to run for president, let alone be president? But us being New Yorkers, anything's possible, right?
Right.
So,
Not to cut you off, but we were acquainted, and I didn't really know what you did.
right.
And so he told me one time you did polling, and that this guy named Barack Obama had a chance to be president. And I thought, I like this guy. But he seemed like he's kind of off his rocker a little bit. I didn't know who Barack was at the time when you said had a chance to be president. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, he was definitely, he had the potential. He did it for 8 years too. So similarly, almost 4 years ago, I said Donald Trump could win too. A lot of people didn't believe it, but now the polls, and we have these poll numbers on our website, like on McLaughlinonline.com. You can go there and see these numbers, and we do pretty much every month. We do a national published poll that's separate and apart from any of the clients that the firm does, and we publish it, and different people can see it in the media. And people go on the website, and in March, and the numbers have been pretty static, but in March, we put out a series of numbers, and we'll have numbers next week for May. But since the State of the Union, the president numbers have been recovering. I mean, he's had some good things in that. The shutdown didn't go well, but the economy's been growing. The State of the Union, he did a very good job putting out his policies. And you've got a president here who a lot of people will tell you they don't like his style, but they like his policies. And really, you'll get 45% of the people, because we're in this post-partisan 9/11 era, where people have been picking sides. So when you look at past presidents, you'll say, okay, George W. Bush, he had a 51% job approval the year he was up for re-election. On election day, he had a 51% job approval, and that's what he won with. President Obama, it was the same thing. He had a 51% job approval. After Hurricane Sandy, he took charge, and his numbers went up a little bit, and he beat Mitt Romney 51-48. So now you've got, and there's polls all over the lot. Some of the polls, there's 240 million eligible adults in America who go vote, and you've got, but not everybody votes. And Trump won in a record turnout with 100. There was 139 million people came out. Hillary got 66 million. Trump got 63 million. But if you take California out of the equation, that's the margin. Trump did that's where she ran up a plurality. And Trump was able to win an electoral majority by winning states that the Republicans hadn't won since the 80s because working class people came back over. So now you've got a situation where in our last national poll, he was at 49% job approval. So he's not far off from the job approval he needs to win to get reelected. And in those numbers, when you're looking at it, what was different is he ran on a message of change. And when we asked over a month ago, do you want to continue Obama's policies, because that was the message, or change and move in a different direction? The change number's gone back up to 49. And the continue Obama's policies, which is really Joe Biden's campaign and a lot of the Democrats, it's only at 41. And the difference is the independents won't change, 51-32. And that's a big difference for the president's policies right now, because when you look at Trump's ratings, although he's a really dead even, Rasmussen had 49 approved today, we were 49 approved. When you look at the people that voted for him in 2016, they approved 90-10, so they haven't changed. And the people that voted for Clinton, they disapprove of the president 89-10. The difference is the independents were dead even, 49-49. And what was surprising was the president was getting 50% approval from Hispanic voters in the poll and 16% among African Americans, because if he gets over double digits among African Americans, and if he gets close to what Bush got, where he got 43%, where the president's running about a third approval with Hispanics, a third in the vote, but if he gets it higher, over 40%, he could easily get reelected. In his favor is, compared to the 2018 election, in his favor is that in 2018 he was really running against himself, where it was really about the job he was doing, and the Democrats who didn't like him were more fired up to come out and vote. So in the midterm elections, you had a record number of people come out, 118 million people come out. And the Democrats outnumbered the Republican vote by 10 million for Congress. But the president wasn't on the ballot. And the Republicans in Congress were not as well liked by the presidents, and a good number of the president's supporters didn't like what the Republicans in Congress, because they didn't accomplish much. They didn't fix immigration. They didn't, fix the health care plan. So the Republicans in Congress were a bit of a drag. So they got 51 million votes, and the Democrats had 61 million votes for the midterm elections. But this will be a higher turnout. And this time he has opponents. Like Nancy Pelosi, she's got a 33 favorable, she's got a 54 unfavorable. Even Clinton voters, 23% are unfavorable to her, Democrats 25 unfavorable to her, African Americans 19 unfavorable. So she's not getting it done, but she is the leader of the Democrats. And because of that, while the Republicans got beat in the House in November, and we made a prediction, and it's on our website, that we were going to lose over 30 seats. We ended up losing 40 seats because the Republicans had no message for Congress. We have the Republicans now ahead 47-43, but it's not because of anything that they've done other than the Democrats are not getting things done. People want the country to compromise and move forward on key things, whether it's infrastructure, healthcare, immigration. They want those things fixed. So when you look at the vote for Congress, the difference is that the independents now support the Republicans 42-31, and the Republicans are rock solid for their own people, 94-3 in a generic sense. And they are getting 13% of the African American vote, 46% of the Hispanic vote. And a lot of what's driving that is the economy. Because in the survey in March, people said the economy was getting better rather than worse, 5140. Since then, you've had a lot of good economic news in terms of 6 million jobs created. You had unemployment drop to 3.4%. You're an expert in the participation rate, the U6 number, the unemployment 6. People are coming back into the job market. Wages are starting to grow, particularly for manufacturing, working class people, which is a good thing. Now, the real thing that, and my last point on this will be, and by the way, it's not just me. I mean, I got a CNN poll here. CNN, they said the president had job approval. This was as of April 28th, 56% approve on the economy. So he's got an economic success leading his ability to drive his job approval. But the key thing is, we asked a question in the March survey, and it's on our website. Is socialism fairer than free market capitalism? Which would be a good kickoff to you with the economy. What's amazing is America, 31% said that socialism was more fair than free market capitalism. 54%, the majority of Americans said that free market capitalism was, they agreed, more fair than socialism. But the difference is it's a partisan difference and it's a generational difference. So Republicans, they were more likely to say that free market capitalism was more fair, 72-16. Independents were more likely to say that free market capitalism, more fair, 62-26. But Democrats went for socialism, 50-31. And that's driving their primary choices. That means you now have Democrats running to the left of Barack Obama, which is really unusual to the mainstream of America right now. And so liberals are saying that socialism is more fair, 61-29. And it's with voters who are under 40, they're more likely to say that socialism is more fair, so there's a generational difference. So you've got a battle where usually the two issues that decide who's going to win the next presidential election, security and economy. You got one where one party's going off to the left towards socialist policies that Americans haven't seen, because older Americans don't understand it because they grew up in the Cold War and against communism, etc. Younger Americans, they're getting a nicer view of this without that. I mean, they don't live in Venezuela. They don't understand Cuba. They haven't been there. And you know, since Young Kurt went down, you don't have that specter of what the older Americans are used to, or their view of socialism. So you got a battle coming right now where that underlies one of the big things about the presidential and congressional decisions next year, where one party's going off to a place that the majority of Americans don't agree with. So with that, I mean, right now, Trump, what he's got going in his favor are the two things that usually help Republicans, peace and prosperity. So if the economy keeps growing, I don't agree with a lot of Republicans who say it's booming, but if it keeps growing, that's a good thing. If the United States stays at peace in a dangerous world, that's a good thing too. So with that, I'm ready to punt.
Okay, so we'll have each panelist give their overall view on the economy, and then we'll go to we'll make a segue to the college admission scam, which is kind of, I think, in some ways, maybe, I'm not sure how Keel feels about it, but it's kind of dovetails to inequality, because I think what's trickling down, when you talk about this wealth effect over the past decade, what's trickling down, higher prices and fewer slots for these elite colleges. So we'll start with Keel in terms of just a general viewpoint on the economy, because you work with kids on a regular basis. So.
Viewpoint on the economy. I think my viewpoint on the economy is, well, let's see. So it's interesting, just the perspective that you present, because I'll just leave it at interesting. I think there's the very notion that there's peace and prosperity is contrary to the experience of many people in this country. Right? So it's of course coming from the white man. Peace and prosperity is what you see in this country. The Trumps of the world are accumulating more and more and disenfranchising or excluding many from the economy. And that's played out in a lot of different ways one in the college scandal. That's one example, and I think that's a microcosm of what's going on in America writ large. So it's really interesting that you're seeing, it's all happy and flowers and roses, and to me, I'm seeing the other end of it. I'm seeing that it's the wealthy scamming the system in every way possible to accumulate more and leaving more and more people scrambling for scraps.
I just think, let me just interrupt. Because what's different is, now I agree with you, there's inequality in society and things could be better. I absolutely agree. And since I poll all the time, I'm always seeing, I see things like Republicans should be aspiring for more African American vote than just double digits. I used to work for a lot of people who would get 20, 25%. Governor Deal is lieutenant governor who ran on criminal justice reform, school choice, and on the growing economy. In Georgia, he got reelected with double digits, and his lieutenant governor got 20% of the vote among the African Americans. The strategy against Jimmy Carter's grandson, who was running against us as a Democrat, they were trying to hold us to 5%, which is what Brian Kemp got against Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams,
through his illegal manipulation of the system and disenfranchisement of voters.
They had a higher turnout. You had a higher turnout of African Americans.
Through illegal means and disenfranchisement of voters and stopping people from being able to vote.
It came out higher. But look.
Through illegal means of stopping people from being able to vote.
I'm telling you,
wasn't Kemp the one who, perhaps I'm confusing Kemp and the other guy, who was just taken to court and sued because of his illegal acts?
I'm talking about Governor Deal. He ran the state and he did a good job. He was trying to limit it out. But in the meantime, what I'm saying to you is that it's growing, and you can
What's
see
growing?
The economy's growing. It's not booming for the working class, but it's better because it was flat for the last 10 years. It was flat. It wasn't a good economy. 2008, the Great Recession, was bad, but now it's
created
growing.
By rich people scheming.
And then not just Republicans. Let me tell you.
This is Republicans, but that's the majority of them.
No. There's plenty of others, but let me tell you.
But that's the majority of
the
them.
Trump economy, what you're looking at in the present tense is most of the benefits of more jobs and growing wages have been among working class, manufacturing, better, and that's a good goal.
And I'm not sure that that's true. I believe I've seen other things. And I'm not, I don't study politics for a living, but I have paid attention to things beyond the Republican point of view, which is what you seem to be bringing.
Yeah.
There's my understanding is a lot of the economic effects right now are rollovers from what was in place before and the recovery from the recession. So to claim and try to attach that to Trump seems false.
No. I mean, we had a recovery, but it was a slow recovery, slowest recovery after a recession. But now it's getting better and growing stronger. So it's an improvement.
Okay, so Kil, do you have anything else you want to say? I think
you have the last word.
On the economy?
That's not my area of expertise.
But it's fine. It's interesting because.
So I find it interesting just in terms of the numbers that he's throwing out there, unqualified, such as who's the polling of socialism versus capitalism. I would wonder if the people you polled could even define socialism accurately. So,
well actually, that's interesting. We'll get into that later. But when you say you're not expert in the economy, the other thing is that you actually work. You're in the economy because you work with kids on a regular basis. So you know these stories. I could talk about the economy, about statistics and that type of stuff, but I don't work with kids on a regular basis. So I don't. You know the stories, and you know how the stories have changed over the past decade. Mm-hmm. When a kid comes to you to help with testing service and where they want to go to college, and maybe there's more angst today than it was 10 years ago. So you work with kids, and you know these stories. So you are in the economy. You probably on the ground in that perspective.
We're all in the economy in that way, but I'm not an economist. I am not someone who studies the financial perspective of that. So I'm saying that there's a point of view that I have that is different because it's not driven by data per se.
Okay, let's go to the land barrier.
Yes. I would say that there are certain benchmarks we use to say that the economy is growing, and I think there's a problem with taking a national economy and saying the economy is growing. I think there's a lot of evidence to show that there are people in other areas the economy is not growing and they're getting left behind. Likewise, a lot of the economy that's growing is debt-based. So we have a lot of people in the financial industry, and I'll call it the financial industry, the printing of money, the lending of money, that's growing, and there's a lot more Ferraris out there and Lamborghinis, but the guy that's trying to make a living and be able to afford his rent, I think there's a problem with that. We see in Brooklyn, I live in downtown Brooklyn, I lived on the Bowery for many years, and I moved to Brooklyn a few years ago. And downtown Brooklyn, Willoughby, we're near the Barclays Center, which is a whole other conversation we could have. There is a lot of debt-based economic growth, and there are so many high-rise 40, 50-story apartment buildings going up there, and I think it's happened a little too fast for the income that people are having to be able to afford those things. And when they do an affordable housing project, it's the middle-class taxpayer that foots the bill, because the developer gets the same profit, even more profit. So if we look at a building that was maybe a 4 or 6-story little tenement building or a brownstone, and now we see they tear 3 of those houses down and put a 50-story building up, that piece of land represents the 150 apartments are on it now instead of 6 apartments. So what we see is the rent going up, okay? So my question is, what benchmarks are we using to say the economy is growing? I think a lot of it is debt-based. And I think that there's a major flaw in looking at a national economy, because the money is being made in certain places and other geographical areas are not. Our cities are still declining. And so we're becoming a supply chain, not a supply chain, a supply economy. For example, under the English mercantile system, when we were colonies, we were only allowed to export natural resources. The whole Erie Canal was built on that. We could export fur, timber, and if we wanted to buy a cabinet, we had to wait for it to go to England, be refined, and buy it back. So we could say the economy was growing, but that was fine if you were a subsistence farmer or a trapper or a logger, but really you weren't making a lot of money unless you were in the stock market and making money on that. So as a supply region, and this is known throughout the world, in Uruguay, for example, in the first half of the century, Uruguay was exporting meat to Europe. And they built their whole economy based on the supply of meat. And they even had a welfare system for people that got left behind. So after World War II, France, England, and the other European countries started raising their own meat. And Uruguay never developed a more sophisticated economy. Their eggs were all in one basket, so to speak. So when there was no more market for their meat, they started borrowing money to make subsidies, and their economy went down. It's still down today. What we are supplying now are arms. We are the largest arms dealer in the world, and Trump recently said to Japan, for example, and other countries that are our client countries, we want those countries, our clients, to spend 2.5% of the gross national product on arms. And where do they buy those arms? They're buying them from us. So I would say banking